Hello, good morning, and welcome to Banya Chat. Today we have a panel. I'm joined with Thomas and Frank, and I've got Rosie and Heavens. We'll be discussing, domestic abuse. Some of you might know, just to give you a little bit background. There will be 16 days of action against domestic violence, which is aimed at businesses to support them to take action against domestic abuse and violence. So that is from tomorrow, 25th to the 10th of December. So here at Banya today, we have dedicated this time just to have a chat, a little discussion about the impact of domestic abuse, both on families as well as businesses, and also looking into the fact that during this pandemic, it's reported that there's been a surge. So we just want to look at that, and it's about bringing awareness, and also just to say we are mainly also speaking to those that are being subjected to abuse. Some of you might be, but you might not be aware that it is domestic abuse that's happening to you. Those who are witnessing it, and the perpetrators themselves, those who may be doing, who may be, perpetrating, but yet probably they don't know that their behavior or what they're doing is actually regarded as domestic violence. So we just want to talk and see how we can navigate through this challenge together. So the panel is a mixture of people. Some of them have witnessed, have been through it. Some of them have not been, but have heard or have an interest. But most importantly, we're all here working for Banya, and Banya has to do with children. And we've got foster families, who are looking at the children, some of whom came into care. Statistics says 63% of children in care have been in care as a result of neglect and abuse, and some of the abuse is domestic violence. So we as Banya, we have a very massive and huge interest in making sure that people are aware of the impact domestic abuse has on children's lives. So who's gonna go first? Let me hear you, Tom.
Oh, well, as you said, Recibo, Banya is focused on the safety and protection of children, and the statistic is as you said, 63% of children that come into care come from abuse or neglect. Myself included, I came into care because I was neglected and because I was witness to domestic violence and abuse. Domestic abuse isn't just like violence. It can be anything from verbal, sexual, lied to, manipulation, anything along those lines, anything within the household that destabilizes a household, that makes someone feel threatened and unsafe, anything along those lines, financial control, anything along those lines.
Okay. Yeah. Do you have anything to add on to that? Amongst the other things that who are regarded as abuse, Rosie and Heavens.
No, I think from my opinion, Thomas has hit the nail on the head. Actually, I think it's when you say domestic violence, a lot of people automatically go towards the physical side of it. But it actually is so much more than that. It is the emotional abuse, it is the financial abuse. It's putting somebody in a situation where they feel like they're trapped.
Mm-hmm.
And it's with working for Banya as well. It's not just the effects that it has on the people involved. It's the people that are seeing it, like the children. They may not even be physically hurt themselves, but they're seeing the effects of it. So we just want to work alongside the children and give them the support that they need.
Yeah. Awesome. So Heavens, tell me, obviously, people might think that domestic violence is only violence, between heterosexual couples or families, who else, really is in the list of.
Well, I think, in my view, it's fair to say that women um, suffer more violence than men, statistically, that is. But everybody, domestic violence has no gender. It's not, it doesn't choose between genders. It affects everybody. It doesn't matter what class you are in, social class you are in, whether you're a top class, rich and famous. I mean, we've seen stories of rich people, famous people actually going to court because of domestic violence. The recent one being Johnny Depp, is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a domestic violence issue, and certainly if those with well-to-do, they also suffer the domestic violence behind all the nice flash houses. But again, the same thing happening in the poorer households. Women tend to suffer. Men also are victims of domestic violence. Children, whether it's a heterosexual or non-heterosexual, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether you're Christian, Islam, Muslim, Hindu. Domestic violence cuts across the board because it's a social issue. It's a human issue. It cuts across religious strata, social strata, class strata. So everybody's affected in different ways. And the funny part is, regardless of whether you're rich or you're poor, depending on the level of oppression that somebody's experiencing, they can actually face barriers. And imagine if you're wealthy and you're a famous couple, or maybe you're a wife to a famous person, that can actually be a barrier to reporting. Imagine if you're a wife of a popular religious figure and you're experiencing domestic violence. I mean, are you going to report or face, the embarrassment of, the whole thing becoming public? And some women actually face some serious death threats, which can put not just them but even their kids in danger. So you find, regardless of the structure of the status of the person, whether you are rich or you're poor, you can face the same barriers in terms of accessing help because you're afraid.
Yeah. Awesome. Oh, that's very true. Yeah. Anyone wants to add to that?
I was going to say, adding to what Heaven said, with the whole embarrassment. I was going to say in 2019 there was 5% of men that reported of being domestically abused. But the thing is, obviously, as men, we're seen as the masculine in the whole society, and I would say it's probably a lot more than that, because we don't want to face that public, especially as us men. And also, even during this whole COVID situation, now that men and women, wife and they're all in their houses, no more going to work, no more going different places, so now in one household. And now, for many years, just going out and coming back in has been a way to escape from facing each other, not being quite honest with each other face to face. So now COVID has allowed people to truly see each other's colors properly. And the statistics COVID season have shown that there's been a lot of domestic violence, abuse within, because everyone's in their house now. And just looking at that, especially for example, that's in a situation, also the whole thing about with Banya and also the kids. Some of those kids can be with those people that they're experiencing that whole domestic thing, and it can be very detrimental to the mental state of the children who are being forced, or not just forced, but any, and also they might grow up thinking, for example, if the person has taken the child in, and then the child thinks that, it's all about shouting, it's all about, yeah. So yeah. Okay,
So in other words, just because there's a lot of frustration, isn't it? With the lockdown, not knowing, what to do, financial, changes and everything else, and people being in the same space or in each other's space, those probably who are not working or whose jobs, wherever they work have been closed, they can't go to work. I mean, they are spending more time at home. So all the frustration of not coping, the changes and everything else can actually be it can fuel or a catalyst to certain people behaving in a particular way that probably they never used to, or maybe those who used to, now they have the opportunity to do it and everything else. So yeah, there's a surge in terms of domestic abuse during this pandemic. So just to come on to the because within the 16 days there's a mention of bringing awareness to businesses. There's some statistics that probably one of you has on businesses, how domestic violence affects businesses.
Yeah.
Heavens.
Yeah.
Or Tom.
Well,
yeah.
I have one statistic. I'm sure Heavens can share the other. Mine is, it's like apparently like 33% of all domestic violence is on workplace grounds. So it's not just, so this could be couples that work at the same office. This could be in the office itself, just colleagues. It's all domestic abuse and violence.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
I've read as well a number of times recently, more so recently than before, that a lot of times as well, with regards to in the workplace and on public transport, there seems to be a lot out at the moment where if a man was to do something, such as there was a video that I saw yesterday where there was a woman, and it was this kind of social media thing. It was like a test to see how men would react. And this girl was sitting on the train, and she was putting her hand on the knee or going to hug him, and it was stated as well that it would be very, very different if it was the other way around. And that's the thing, there's so many men that I find that do put up with a lot of stuff where actually they can be reporting it because it's not appropriate. Things are said to them that shouldn't be said, but if it was the other way around. And I do think a lot of men are more coming out of the woodwork now and saying, well, actually, this is not right. I am not being treated right by my partner. There are children that are now speaking up a little bit more, especially to like teachers and stuff, because they're recognizing, because there's so much stuff out there in schools where teachers are saying, this is not appropriate and this is not appropriate. I don't know, it seems to be more that children are able to speak out a little bit more and to say, well, actually, this is happening to me and I can actually talk to somebody about it. So I've just found, I've been reading a lot about that kind of thing recently in terms of domestic violence. And yeah,
It's actually interesting. Yeah, because yeah, go on, Heavens.
Yeah, very interesting. I was reading another report which mentioned that up to 56% of women miss work at least 3 times a week. You can imagine because of a domestic violence related issue, and close to the same amount also come to work late, almost the same times a week as well, because of a domestic violence related issue. So you can already see how the impact that already has on the workplace, on the business, and the impact it has not just on the business, but also on the colleagues at work. Because when somebody is having a challenge at home, especially they're being abused, they're being beaten up, they're showing up to work with bruises, it affects even the colleagues. Some of them may know, and it does affect even their performance. When they don't see their colleague at work, they know that, okay, maybe something has happened to them. They're trying to check on them. When they do come late, they now have to make sure that they are looked after, they are okay, they're actually able to work. So the impact goes beyond the house and the victim. It affects even the workplace. That's why the same report was mentioning that up to £2 billion is actually lost by business due to domestic violence. So it's a very big issue for business.
That's a massive thing. I mean, if anyone has questions, those who are watching us live, if you've got any questions, or maybe if you're going to watch this after, please just drop in some questions that you have. We'll be able to look at them. Tom, you mentioned earlier that you actually witnessed a domestic violence. What would you say are the effect or the impact it has had, or it has in general, or maybe personally on your life, and in general on anyone's life? And anyone else here, guys, can just come in with some of the things that you have.
Well, it's definitely impacted me, because there's like it's traumatic events. So I suffer like PTSD, so post-traumatic stress, anxiety, depressions, like especially like anxiety. Like if somebody even today, I got moved out of my house when I was 7, thankfully, and like even today, if someone just went to give me a high five, I'd flinch just out of natural reaction. Like I was never like physically abused myself. It was never directly at me, but just witnessing that gave me that mental state of just fear and anxiety, and that raised adrenaline.
Very true.
Yeah.
Anyone want to jump in with other things?
My stepdad, he grew up in a family that was very much, if you misbehave, you get the belt. And it was very much that was carried on. So he witnessed his dad doing it, and he then did it to his kids. And it's very interesting, because Tom said something that's very familiar with me, because my stepdad used to use the belt. When I went into my job, we're working with adults with learning disabilities. We had to do some self-defense training. It was how to get it out of the situations, not to kind of hurt anybody else, but to get out of the situations ourselves. And we had to do this acting out, where somebody went to hit me and I had to react to it, and I just burst into tears, because I couldn't deal with the thought that somebody was coming near me like that, aggressively. And even though it was just acting, and even though we were just preparing for if a student did do this, it really affected me, and I couldn't deal with it, and I had to step out of the class. And it can affect you in your adult life. It can be things that you've even blocked out, but then something will trigger. And I think a lot of the time with the children in Banya as well, with the children that we look after, there can be these triggers, and we have to learn them, and we have to be gentle with them, and be prepared that there might be things that we're not aware of. So we just have to work with the children and let them know that they're in a safe place. So whatever they have witnessed and whatever they have seen, Banya can help with that.
That's true. That reminds me that actually in Banya, it's one of every year we obviously throughout the year we have training every month, and I know for the length of time I've been here, every year that topic is covered on domestic violence, bringing awareness to foster carers, and also getting them to understand, should they come across or look after children who has been exposed to this, how to help them and support them, and also how they themselves as foster care should behave, because and make sure that they avoid anything that will be deemed to be that kind of form of abuse or anything like that, and that will kind of trigger children living out. So that training is offered. Frank, in terms of the impact it has on children in terms of education.
Yeah, it's got massive impact. Imagine coming home and you're just being abused. For example, you felt something for a child, you're always failing a subject. And then your parents consistently use words to tell you, you're not good enough, you can't do this, I don't think you can do all these things. Just keep damaging, because it's a mental state that we're dealing with here. It's not even a physical or anything. The mental state of that child can be very damaging, and that will cause low self-esteem. They won't even have confidence, and then they just they just freeze when they just freeze in those certain situations. Yeah, so those will be the long-term effects on the children as well, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. Just witnessing, coming from a place where a household where this is happening, even if it's not direct to you, when you go to school, it's on your mind, your concentration, you miss school, you get to school, like, just like as Heaven said that, women who have been, subjected to abuse, showing up late or being off sick, it will be the same. If mom or dad or whoever is looking after you is down because of this situation, environment, home, it's very toxic. It means no one's going to take the children to school. They will be late to school. Their concentration is affected. So, and
Yeah.
then, it's a long-term thing that once your education is affected now, it has an impact, in all the way through. So we see that this is very, very, and this is something that everyone has to be aware of. So if I was to ask you, Rosie, to say, what would you say today if there was anyone here listening, anyone who's going to watch this, who probably knowingly, unknowingly is subjecting other people through this such kind of abuse? What is your word to them? What to add?
So, somebody who is actually being the abuser.
Yeah.
Get help. There are phone lines that you can call, but there's also reaching out to somebody who maybe you trust. It can be a family or a friend, and say that, this is something that I'm struggling with now. I want to be better. I want to get better. I want to stop hurting the people in my life. Everybody's going to have one person that they can go to. So even if you don't, you don't feel like you can, because at the moment there aren't really any help groups that you can go to, and people you can see physically because of the situation we're in. But there are phone lines that you can call. There are people you can talk to, and that is the very first step. As soon as you take that first step, you're already getting better. You're already bettering yourself. You're already taking those first steps. And I think for those people as well that are also listening, that maybe they know something's going on, be there for them. Don't judge them. Just be there and listen. And also for people that are actually being abused, or they're not even sure if it's abuse. Again, there are helplines out there, but there's also you can actually call. This is something that I found out recently. If you actually call the police and you press 5, you don't even have to say anything. They know that someone's in trouble, and they will find where you are and they will come. Not many people know that, but if you just press 5 and you feel that you're in that situation, that's there.
Repeat it again. So you call 999.
You call 999, and when they ask you to speak, if you press 5, they know that nobody can speak. They know that you're in a situation where you can't actually say anything. They know that somebody else is around that you can't speak in front of, and they will find out where you are, and they will come. So that is something that is out there.
Thank you.
So
Thank you
also,
for that. I didn't know that. Did you know?
Also, if you ring the police, you can pretend to be ordering something like a pizza, and they will ask you questions that you only have to answer yes or no to. So if you ring up and they say,
"Oh, something just happened."
Sorry, if you ring the police and say, "I want a pizza," they will say, "Are you aware it's the pizza?" If you aware it's the police, and you say yes, and then they say, "Okay, so if somebody else is there that you can't speak in front of, can you say pepperoni?" So there's certain ways that they can talk to you and find out that somebody is there, just by doing something like ordering a pizza or ordering a taxi, and they will know what to say. But it only means that you have to answer yes or no or one-word questions. So there is help.
Awesome. I've got some comments here coming before I come. I've got some comments here. All right, I think we have answered this one from Shifa Khan, who's watching. Thanks for watching. Do you have any studies around the numbers of children that come into care because of domestic violence? Yes, 63% of children who come into care, as we said earlier, is a direct result of neglect and abuse, and within that statistics is to do with domestic violence. And I've got another one here coming from Beverly, saying, "I've witnessed domestic violence between a young girl in care and her boyfriend. It took a lot to get the young girl to realize that it was wrong. She do not have to continue with the relationship." Wow, that's very true. Can I just ask, Tom, what message do you have to a girl, to a boy, to a young person who is being subjected to violence in that manner, but they don't know, just like Beverly said?
Like I definitely just like say get like same answer that Rosie kind of says, like get help, like call, tell people that you know, or get them to get you help, get yourself out of the situation, or get them to help you get out of that situation, because you don't need to go through any of that. You don't need to suffer, you don't need to hurt for any type of relationship of any kind, or any type of, not even relationship, it could be friendship, nothing. You shouldn't put yourself in this situation. You shouldn't have to be in a situation where you are could come to harm of any type.
Thank you so much, Tom, for that. Heavens, um, there's a question again here. I think we can repeat. We can answer. There's no harm in saying it again. How are foster carers supported to help children that may have experienced domestic violence?
Yeah, I think training is something that foster carers do get. Training is invaluable to foster carers, especially when they are starting out and they're new. They need that training and counseling as well. We also give our foster carers access to counseling in the event that they're actually dealing with a real-time issue, like what one of our viewers was talking about, where it's an ongoing issue where you're looking after a young person and they are actually experiencing domestic violence from another young person, whether it's a girlfriend or a boyfriend. So the foster carers also need counseling to deal with some of those issues, because whatever the young person will be going through, they will also be going through it in their own way, and also trying to support the young person. And the third layer of support is obviously you've got your supervising social worker, who is also there to give you professional support and advice in terms of practice issues and how to do and how to report and how to share information with relevant people and some of the people around the child who need to know important information. So those are the layers of support that we give as Banya. And I wanted to actually come back to say, when we're talking about the rising numbers of children who are getting into care as a result of domestic care and domestic violence, and we also looked at the effects that it has on children. I think Tom spoke a little bit about that. It actually brings us back to actually notice that there is such a huge need for people who are willing to open up their homes to actually look after these children, because they are coming from homes where things are happening around them. They don't have control over what is happening around them. There's two adults fighting and throwing things at each other and abusing, and they are fearful, they are anxious, they are losing time at school, they're not growing as they should, there is a stunt in their growth, they are facing all sorts of challenges, and they need a safe place to live. They need people who are empathetic, people who understand that when they are wetting the bed, it's not because they were not trained or they're not good children, it's because they are still going through something, and these are things that started as a result of something. So so it's something that I just thought about, say, okay, we need more people to be understanding and to know that yes, there are kids who actually do need some safe homes out there.
Awesome. So it's 16 days from tomorrow up to the 10th. So it doesn't end here with our discussion. Let's go and do something, guys. I mean, whether it's on your post, on your Instagram, all the listeners, You know, what you can do, just write a statement, just write it, post a poster that, that is, that brings awareness on your story, and have a discussion at home with children, with anybody, to see where they are and educate people, because we all need to be well informed. There are things that you and me, before we thought they were okay, but now we know they're not okay. You know what I mean? And we have to stand up for that. So let's be a voice. Let's be instruments to bring awareness and bring a change, isn't it? To make a better world. There's somebody who's, is it Michael Jackson? Make a better world. But thank you very much, guys, for coming. Frank, good night. It was good having you. Rosie, as
Thank
always.
you.
Heavens, yes. And Tom, today I took your space, but you'll come back tomorrow next time. You know what I mean? Thanks for listening. And those who are going to watch here, if you need to get in touch with us, please do get in touch with us. Our details will be, on this video. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you. Bye.